For most writers, the goal is to sell what we write to people who have money to buy it, or to people who will publish it for us. And you're thinking that because you haven't sold anything, you're a failure. And maybe you've tried. Maybe you've tried selling stuff and nobody's just bought it. People have read it, no one's buying. And so you start thinking, well, I'm a failure. And unfortunately, a lot of writers think this way and equate their success to sales. And while sales are an indicator, they aren't the only indicator. And in actuality, I have a feeling your definition of failure is actually all wrong. So today I'm going to give you a few things to consider, some questions to ask, some action steps to take to help you move from your view of failure to one of success, to move you from someone who wants to make a difference in the world through your writing to someone who actually can tell stories that matter. Let's jump in. Success in writing is often tied to sales or the outcome. I mean, how many people buy my comic? Can I sell my short story? Can I sell my script? Will anyone publish my book? And it doesn't matter what it is that you write. And while this channel primarily deals with screenwriting, finding success as a writer is the same no matter what you're writing. In fact, it's kind of the same for all creators. Will anyone buy my book of poetry? Will anyone come to my art show and buy something? Will anyone like my sculptures enough to buy one? Or even, will this video get 100 views? Will they hit the like button or subscribe or comment if they're finding value? And if they do, then I'm successful. I mean, that's kind of what we start to think. But the first thing you have to understand, the first thing all creators have to understand is we cannot control the outcome. You can do everything right. You can be a master craftsman, telling stories, painting pictures, making music, whatever it is, and do it impeccably. I mean, from all accounts, it's awesome, and yet people still may not buy your stuff. You can't control the outcome. You can influence it for sure, because art and creations that are good, yeah, they have a better shot. But what if no one knows you? Or what if you're new? Or what if you're trying to break in? What if they don't trust you yet? Now let me give you an example here. This YouTube channel, Big Red Stripes YouTube channel. As I record this, I, Jake, am still relatively new to YouTube. I'm actually only 9 months in. I've got just over 400 subscribers as I'm recording this. I've only got one video that's got more than 1,000 views. It's actually getting close to 3,000 views about software. I'll link that there if you haven't seen that. I've got a couple that aren't too far away. And while, yes, I'd like for my channel to be monetized, sure. I mean, who wouldn't? To get some extra money because the ads you got to watch. I mean, that'd be a nice perk, but I'm not there yet. But more importantly, I'm not creating videos for that reason. I'm creating videos because I want to help new writers positively impact the world and inspire others by telling stories that matter. So I want to help you learn to tell better stories. At the end of the day, that's what I want. And one way I have to do that are these YouTube videos. They're free to whomever finds them to watch, so share them, whatever. They're free for anybody. If you want more in-depth transformation though, I do have a screenwriting course, which is a course I wish I would have had when I was starting as a screenwriter. It's called the Screenwriting Fast Track. Link is below. I do script and story consultation because I want to help people tell better stories. If you're having trouble with a story, I will help you with that. That's a link below. I have a coaching program that, as I'm recording this, newsflash, as I'm recording this, I'm looking for 10 people to help me pilot a new iteration of that program. That's a work at your own pace model. And if you're one of those 10, you'll also get access to the premium version of the Screenwriting Fast Track, which is the most robust course in that bundle. And if you want to be one of those 10, click on the Screenplay Navigator link below to apply for a free call, and we can see if that's going to be a good fit for us. But I do all of those things because I want to help new writers tell stories that matter. And while I'm still new to YouTube, so if I'm talking about YouTube, while I'm still new, I'm constantly learning things about YouTube. I'm experimenting with things. I'm trying to do different things, make my videos better, a little more engaging. Sometimes I add a little more text in or whatever. I'm trying to do things that are a little more engaging. I'm not really new to video or video creation or storytelling. I've been telling stories for 30 years, give or take. I tried writing my first novel when I was in grad school, and that's a train wreck, so no, I'm not sharing that. When I moved to California, I obtained my terminal degree in screenwriting at USC. And while I love to write, I also edit, which is another form of storytelling for the screen. And I've actually edited content for TV shows and films like The Simpsons, American Dad, CSI Miami, Blue Bloods, Skyfall, The Expendables, and Harry Potter. I've taught screenwriting and filmmaking, and I even wrote the entire degree, classes, schedules, all of it, for one of the schools I worked at. I've had meetings with actors and producers and directors about my scripts and other scripts, and I came also close to selling a TV pilot to CBS a few years ago. And I'm not telling you this to toot my own horn, because if you ever get to know me, I hate doing all the stuff that I just did. That's not going to come up. I'm telling you because I know what I'm doing. I know the stuff that I make is good. I know the information I'm giving you about screenwriting and filmmaking is accurate and correct. And if it ever isn't, I'll be the first to admit the error and fix it. So I've got the knowledge. I've got the skill set. I should, of course, then have hundreds of thousands of subscribers and views on my YouTube channel, right? No, because I cannot control the outcome, just like you can't control the outcome. But if that's all I did, if all I did was just look at the numbers, I might just throw in the towel. Now, don't worry, I'm not, okay? I'm not throwing in the towel. But if I were just to look at the numbers and look at things, and I might think, this isn't moving as fast as I want it to. Other YouTubers, they post like 4 videos and they've got thousands of subscribers. So maybe I'm just not doing something right, or maybe I'm not good. I know that's not true. I know my content is valuable because it's based on my experiences and my knowledge in Hollywood. In fact, much of it is the content I wish I had known and heard when I was starting out as a screenwriter back before the days of YouTube. So I don't look at the outcome as a factor of success. I can't tie my view of success, or of failure for that matter, into something I cannot control. And if you're tying your success as a screenwriter into how many contests you win, or how many contests you place in, or how many producers read or request your script, or how many sales you get, or how many awards you win, or a host of other things, your definition of success is all wrong. And you might be looking at yourself as a failure when in fact you're not. You're just not using the proper criteria. So when it comes to success and failure in the creative arts, it doesn't matter what you're creating. If the success or the failure is tied in any way to things you can't control, you're in trouble, and you're never gonna make it as an artist. It's too hard. You get way more rejection as an artist than is healthy for any normal person, but you aren't normal. You're a writer. There is hope, though. There are 2 primary ways to evaluate your success or failure as an artist, and they are these: process and performance. We're going to start with performance, even though it kind of comes later. I mean, if we put these things on a continuum, we've got outcome here at the end, performance is before that, and then process is before that, and kind of process goes through all of it. There are also things that actually go before the process, but we'll get there. But you can never have the outcome you want if you don't deliver, if you don't perform. You've got to create. You've got to have a thing to sell, whether it's a song, a comic, a short story, a painting, or a screenplay. At some point, you have to actually create it, and that is the performance. Performance is where acquired skill and knowledge comes to bear. You have to decide when to do what. When you're performing, am I going to do this or this? Am I going to zig or should I zag? All those things. And you start bringing everything in your toolbox to the table, and then you choose the right tools at the right time to make the right thing just right. And because you are a master performer, you can do that. In fact, you can add little nuances. You can go a different way. There's multiple, when you're looking at a problem, you see multiple ways to solve the problem, not just one, because you're a master performer. If you've ever gone to see a play or a musical multiple times, you're about to understand what I'm going to say, and you're definitely going to get it if you've ever acted in a play or a musical. No 2 performances are exactly the same. I guess this would go for musical artists as well. No 2 performances are exactly the same, and yet all those performances, they can all be individually great. Because when exceptional people bring their masterful talents together to perform, magic sometimes just happens. And while you can't control the magic parts, you can control the performance parts. You can be the one to fill your toolbox. You can be the one to choose the right tool at the right time. You're the one who creates, who does the thing, who performs, and you can control that. And it doesn't matter what anyone says to you after the performance, because you know if it was good or not. You know. And you know because you're a master craftsman. You know what's good and you know what isn't. And while you can't control the outcome of how people receive your performance, you can definitely control how you give it. But here's the thing. Most writers just jump to the outcome to evaluate their success or failure. The ones who don't, the ones who evaluate their performance, the ones who look at their work of art and they think, if I could do that again, I would probably do X or Y differently this time. These are the advanced creators. These are the advanced writers. These are the ones who've made it, not because they've sold things, but because they know success and failure lie in their performance of the craft. the thing they can control. And if they don't know how to do something, they learn. If they don't execute it well, they practice, they hone, they work to get better. The thing is, like new writers, they want to know the 7 tips for great dialogue. And so videos on that topic get lots of attention on YouTube. But advanced writers look at their writing and they ask, how could I have done that just a little better? And what do I not know that I need to know to perform better? That's because they're focused on the performance and not the outcome. 7 tips for great dialogue, that's outcome focused. How can I perform better? That's performance focused. But how do you get to the point where you're performing as you want to perform? Well, simply you focus on the process. In a very real sense, you cannot write a screenplay if you don't know how the process works. More importantly, because every screenplay is different. If you only know one way to write a screenplay, you're in trouble because all of your stories are going to be exactly the same. They're going to feel exactly the same, and it's going to start to seem like to others that you're just a copy of yourself. You're a one-note singer. You're a one-hit wonder. So what you have to do is you have to get good at the process. You want to succeed at the process. Let me give you a different example. Running. Now let's say you want to win a marathon. Okay, that's the outcome that you're after, and it's a lofty one for sure, but that's one that, if anybody really works hard enough, and depending on the marathon, anybody could win a marathon. You could. If you worked really hard at it, you could do it. And you know that to win a marathon, your performance has got to be excellent, right? I mean, it's got to be excellent. Your running form must be top notch. You must be in impeccable shape. You've got to eat in the right things, get enough sleep, kept your muscles developed yet agile. You'll have to have the right gear to help you achieve the goal, be a successful runner. So to hone my performance for the marathon, there's some other things that you've got to do, and you've got to perform at some shorter distances. So maybe you want to win a half marathon. You also want to average less than 6 minutes a mile in 4 different races of different lengths. So all my average time is down, and whatever you choose as your performance evaluator. So whatever you're doing, like, here's the things I want to do to make sure that I'm performing as I want to perform. But you still actually have to get out and run. I mean, you've got to do the laps, you got to do the sprinting exercises, the hill workouts, the weights, oxygen deprivation runs, and a host of other things to develop your process. And let's say on race day that you've worked the process, like you're running 5-minute, 30-second miles on average, doesn't matter how long you're running, 5:30, that's a really good time. You have the right gear, you've eaten the right foods, you're rested, you're all set. But a cold front comes in the night before, and it's really cold. It's colder than you're used to, and it takes you longer to get warmed up, and you use a lot more energy to get warmed up than you had planned, energy you were wanting to save for the race, and you end up coming in 5th. You come in 5th. You wanted to win this marathon, you come in 5th. Are you a failure? I mean, do you just hang up your running shoes and hang your head in shame like, I'm just a failure? Or do you have the skills and confidence to acknowledge the things outside of your control were at play, and the next race may have a better outcome, or at least a different one? And here's why this matters. New writers come in asking, how do I sell my script? That's what every new writer wants to know. How do I sell my script? How do I get an agent? Wrong question. They're not asking a better question, which is something like, what makes a good story? In other words, the focus is on the outcome and not on the process. Learning the process helps you know how to perform at peak levels. And only when you perform at peak levels can you possibly have a chance at obtaining the outcome you're looking for. But you can't control the outcome. You can't control what happens down here. You can control the process. You can control the performance, especially in the arts. There's no cold front that's going to affect you. You can control your performance. And whether you're successful or not has nothing to do at all with the outcome. How much you sell, how much you publish, all that stuff doesn't matter. Your success and your failure have to do with your process and your performance. Have you become capable in the craft enough to be able to perform anywhere at any time? Can you rewrite that scene in 30 minutes? Can you deliver an entire script that's actually really good in 3 weeks? Because that's what we want to hire you to do. Can you read a script and tell me what's working and what isn't, and give me 3 different suggestions for how to fix it? And if you can, well, now you're a successful writer. If you can't, you're only a failure if you decide to quit learning. You got to focus on the process, focus on improving the performance. Maybe another way to think of it is this. If you aren't having the outcomes you desire, so in your head, you're like, no, I want these outcomes, but I'm not getting them, you should seriously consider that the problem doesn't lie in the outcomes. It doesn't lie in the other people. It lies in the things that you can control. Your process, your performance. I mean, one of those things may not be quite where it needs to be. The thing is, subpar scripts, they just usually don't get sold. Now, yes, sometimes development devolves a script into a lesser piece of art, but your stuff has to be excellent in every way, especially if you're new. And someone with some clout has to fall in love with it. So as a screenwriter, to get the outcome you want, get down here, the process and the performance, they have to be exceptional. And that said, you may have an excellent script. Your process is great, your performance is great, and it still may not get bought. But that doesn't make you a failure. What makes you a failure is thinking your process or your performance are good when they're actually not. So let me give you a few questions you can ask yourself to see if you are in the right spot or not as an artist, and some action steps you can take. Now, before I get into that, interact in some way. If you find value, like, subscribe. YouTube loves the interactions, comments, likes, subscriptions, all that stuff. They really like that. It helps others find this channel. I really do appreciate you doing all of those things. So if you're finding value, please do one of those things. Okay, questions you can ask. Number one, am I stuck in a rut? I mean, are you doing the same things that you've always done? Have you tried incorporating anything new? Now, one thing that's in your favor is you're watching a video, right? You're trying to learn, not because this video is the answer, but because you're watching it says you're willing to learn. You're wanting to learn. Are you stuck in a rut? Are you willing to learn something? Are you willing to try something new? But are you only watching? Or are you going to try to incorporate some of the things that you're learning? I mean, that's the thing. It's easy. It's really easy to be a fan of screenwriting. There's a lot of fans of screenwriting. It's easy to be a fan. It's a whole other level of commitment to be a fanatic. And if you want to get the outcomes that I think you're probably wanting, you got to be a fanatic. Another question to ask yourself: what was the last thing I read about screenwriting? Now, this also speaks to the learning. I mean, there's a lot of great resources out there. If you want some ideas for good books, I did make a video. I'll link that here, some good books about screenwriting, but you can find other lists and other books than what I just recommend. I even have a free guide to story structure. That's linked below. The complete guide to story structure. There's a book. It's like 100 pages. It's awesome. But if you don't want to spend any money, there you go. If you want something to read, read that. But read something. What are you reading? What are you trying to learn about screenwriting that you haven't learned yet? Another question: what was the last screenplay you read? I mean, writers are readers. You can learn a ton from reading other screenplays. So find screenplays and read them, not transcriptions of screenplays. So if you find a script on IMDb, it's probably a transcription. Find a PDF where the title page has production revisions on it. There's notes about production revisions. Okay, that's the actual, read that script. Another question to ask yourself: are you more concerned with how to find an agent or with how to tell a good story? If your view of success is only on the outcome, you got to start shifting your focus. You need to start focus on learning tools, on getting better at writing scenes, on learning how to identify a good and bad character arc. Advanced screenwriters are like good mechanics. You can take your car to a good mechanic and say hey, it's doing XYZ, and they'll be like, oh, that's the alternator. A bad mechanic is going to say something like, oh, well, that sounds like that's a problem in the engine. No kidding, you think? And here's a big question to ask yourself: why do I want to be a writer? Why am I writing this thing? I mean, if you're writing for an outcome, you're trying to sell it, you're trying to get an agent, whatever the outcome is, then what happens when you don't? I mean, you're going to label yourself a failure. But if you're wanting to tell a story about something that matters, about something that could change someone's life, and it doesn't matter if it's an action adventure or a kid's show or rom-com, doesn't matter. Good stories worth telling are about things that matter, about things that can make a difference in our world. Things like forgiveness and justice and loving one another and caring for one another. Now, that doesn't mean you always have to have a happy ending either. I mean, maybe your story is about something like, I hope our world isn't like this, or this is something I don't want us to become like. That's something important too. You're still talking about something that matters. And if you're writing for this, then you know that if you get the process right and you get the performance right, it's going to eventually find a home. People are going to hear your story, and their life will be better because of it. So why are you writing? Why do you do it? If it's to make money or be famous or anything like that, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. Can those things happen? Well, yeah, of course they can happen. Absolutely. But only if you get the process and the performance up to the levels that they need to be to get the outcome that you're wanting. So 3 action steps that you can take. Number 1, write an answer to this question: why do I want to be a writer? If your answer is an outcome-based answer, okay, you've got 2 options. You really have 2 options. First option, quit now, because when something doesn't sell, when you don't get the outcome you want, you're going to think yourself a failure and you're going to quit anyway. So that's option 1. Option 2, you can revise your answer to something that is process or performance-based? Now, you probably won't be able to do this in 10 minutes, okay? This is not something like, oh, I'm going to do this, and you're done. This is something you need to wrestle with, and it needs to be at the core of your character, that if someone were to ask you this very question, why are you writing? And you've wrestled with it enough, the answer just rolls off your tongue. That's where you got to get to. It just kind of rolls out. It's easy to come out. You need to think about it that much. Why are you writing? Action step number 2, make some measurable goals that focus on the process of writing. Goals about learning specific things. Goals about reading or practicing specific things. Goals about the amount of time spent writing. Goals about your writing environment. Your writing environment actually impacts your performance immensely. So maybe you just want to improve your writing environment. Have some goals about that. Have some goals about pages written or pages revised. Anything like this. Start measuring success on your completion of the process and your engagement in the process, instead of something like, I want 3 producers to read my script. You can't control how many producers want to read your script. It might be 2. Are you a failure then? No. Action step number 3, if you're still having trouble, do this. At the top of the piece of paper, write your outcome-based goal. Okay, so to sell a script. That's what I want to sell a script. Okay, that's great. Next to it, write the number 20. That's going to be step 20. Below that, 19, below that 18, below that 17, all the way back down to 1. Then what you want to do is start backing off. Give yourself other goals to achieve that's going to lead to the one above it, to the one above it. At some point on this list, you're going to shift from an outcome-based measurement to a measurement that's based on performance or skill, or on the process and knowledge of learning how to do this craft. And then what you do is you scratch off all the outcome-based goals and you just work with all the others. And maybe that will help you. Maybe that will help you just kind of back off of the outcome-based goal and start focusing on things that are more process and performance-based, because that's really where you're going to find success. That's how you can really define success as a screenwriter. Are you succeeding? Yeah, because my performance and my process, those are good. Ultimately, what you have to do is you got to stop evaluating your own success or failure on the outcomes. You can't control those. And when you're concerned about those, things, your measure of success or failure is all out of whack. But if you're focused on process and on performance and on improving those as best you can, the outcomes that you want, those are going to come. The recognition, the opportunities, all that stuff, it's going to come if you want them. But you won't be a failure. You won't see yourself as a failure. It's just, hey, I've got this new opportunity. You're not a failure. Okay? You can't control the outcomes. When I work with students, with clients, and I don't work with everyone, but when I do, one thing I'm looking for is a desire in that student to make a difference in the world by telling stories that matter. I mean, if a prospective student of mine is just like, hey, I just want to write something that I can sell, I'm probably not going to work with them. Because the reason is, I know students who focus on process and performance and on honing those areas of the craft. If they want to, they're going to be able to sell a script. It's going to happen. But a student who just wants the quick fix, the 10 easy steps, the 5 things to write a screenplay or whatever and sell it, like all those little things, then they're going to quit after a couple of tries. And I just don't want to invest my time into someone who's going to tap out because their view of failure is all wrong. Now that said, if you want to work with me, if you want my help to shift you into a writer who can positively impact the world with a story well told, now there are a few links below that might be of interest to you. I noted some of those earlier. If you want to learn or hone your skills about critical elements in storytelling, screenwriting process, if you want to hone process stuff, okay, you should probably check out the Screenwriting Fast Track. That's going to help you fill your toolbox with all kinds of stuff to be able to then perform the craft of screenwriting well. If though you want to make a radical shift in both your process and performance, plus be one of the first 10 people to help me pilot the new work at your own pace version of the Screenplay Navigator and get a big discount, plus get access to the premium Screenwriting Fast Track and work with other writers serious about the craft, you can schedule a free call with me and we can talk about whether the Screenplay Navigator is right for you. Just click on the link below, Screenplay Navigator. Ultimately, I want to help you and inspire you to become a writer who will tell stories that matter, stories that positively impact and change our world. If you want to be that kind of writer, we should talk. And for any of you, if you ever have a question about any of the things I offer or just have a question for me, you can drop it in comments below. You can also email me, ask a big red stripe. So whether it's a question about my course, my coaching, screenwriting in general, whatever, email me, drop comments below, all that stuff. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this has been helpful to you. And if it has, please be sure to like, subscribe, bell, all those things. I really, truly, really do appreciate it. If you want to help support this channel, there is a Patreon link below that really helps me out. And depending on your level of interest, you might get access to some of the archived YouTube videos or even some Big Red Stripe swag. So be sure to check that out. Any support you give is incredibly helpful. I really do appreciate it. Thank you again for watching. When you go to tell a story, focus on the process and on the performance, and tell a story that matters. See you later.